Hi, everyone. I am Shay Alexander, and this is Soul Sessions. What you doing? What you doing? Where you at? Who you with, girl? Who you with, girl? I wanna love you. I wanna rock you. I wanna love you. I wanna love you. I just wanna love you. I You better sing it. That's when that space game get real good. And like, y'all like that? Did you dig that? It's called What You Doing, Where You At, Who You With. And it's by Divinity Roxx. And guess who's on the phone with me right now? Super bassist, the fantastic, fantabulous Divinity Roxx.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. You're my guest.
Yes, I really appreciate that. I really do. Really do.
No worries at all. I'm looking at your bio, and everything about it just speaks to funk. It speaks to music, from the photo to just the overall description of who you are. But rather than to have me tell folks, why don't you tell the world who is Divinity Roxx?
Whoa. Woo, that's a really tough one. I'm a bass player. I'm a songwriter. I'm an MC. Divinity Roxx is an artist. Um, I'm an activist, a social activist. I believe in women's rights. I'm an educator. I don't know, I'm just a woman out here in the world playing music and doing it with a purpose and with a message and, getting it out there to people to touch people's lives and people's hearts. That's my whole mission, to inspire other women and other people in general around the world.
Wow.
Huh? That's me.
And as a bassist, are there many women bassists out there? Because every time I see it, it's, that particular instrument being played, it's by a guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, traditionally the bass has been a male instrument. However, right now there are so many incredible female bass players. I mean, so many. One of my favorites, of course, and one of the female bass players who inspired me to even think about playing bass or pick up the bass was Michelle Cello, of course. Um, oh my God, there's Tal and Nick and there's Tasia, who's playing with Janelle Monáe, and she's from Atlanta. I don't want to get into names because I will forget somebody who I love and who I admire, and but there are so many incredible female bass players out there right now, and we're just pushing each other forward. And I think young women are picking up the bass as opposed to the guitar these days. So it's a beautiful thing.
Well, you mentioned Michelle Cello. Was she your inspiration at all in putting out this album?
No, it's so funny because this album for me was the album where I got back to myself. I got back to who I was as a woman, who I've evolved into as a woman, as a songwriter, as a lyricist. I really just needed, and I really honestly said that this was going to be my last album.
Really?
The previous album I made was called The Roxx Box Experience, and if you were to listen to that, it's a completely different album than this. The Roxx Box Experience was my young, wild, rah-rah, frustrated, angry, MC, hip-hop, rocked out, just emotionally wild self. And on this album, I feel like I really gained a handle of who I was, what my purpose was in this music and in this life as a musician, as an artist, as a songwriter, and all of the influences that every piece of music that's ever touched my life, I think you can find in here on this album. So I think that was the inspiration. But yeah, I did originally say when I went in to make this record that it was the last album I was going to make.
Okay, so tell me more about that, because I mean, it seems to me that your life is music, or music is your life, and it seems from this album
It's,
that you really, really enjoyed yourself. I get a sense of freedom and just giving it all to the album. So why would you think it would be the last?
you know, when we started working on the Impossible album, I had been working on this record for years. After the Roxbox experience, I decided that okay, I'm going to make another album. But a lot of different life things started happening, and you live your life, and then these inspirations start coming. But what I did for this particular album was go back to all the years that I would just sit in front of my computer in the middle of the night and just record bass lines and make little beats and put these things away. So I went back and started listening to some of the stuff that I would make in my quiet moments. Because, like I said, the Roxbox experience was so rah-rah, out there, crazy, aggressive. But what I would write in my quiet moments was nothing like that. It would be really pretty little bass lines like this, like on the song The Book. That song is probably so many years old. It just sat on my hard drive for so long. It was actually inspired after I did a lesson with, No Question was inspired after a lesson with O.T.O. Burridge years ago. But I decided that it was going to be my last album because I was really frustrated with music and frustrated with the business of music and the career and all the things that go along with having a career in music. Because it's not very easy for an independent artist at all.
Right.
When you're truly independent with no corporate sponsorship,
Right.
No label distributing your records. You are responsible for whether people hear you or not. And so that's the position that I am in my life as a musician and as an artist. So it can take a toll on you. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna just this is gonna be the last one, y'all. This is it. I was like, you're crazy. This can't be the last album. And as I'm in the studio making this record, I'm like, yeah, on the next record we're gonna do this. And the guys are like, wait, I thought you said this was the last record. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. This is the last one, So I've been
hard to give it up, isn't it? It's just hard to give it up.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've been thinking about the next record, which is driving me insane because I don't have time right now to actually be creative because I'm so immersed in all the business and the touring and putting the band together and rehearsing and, making sure we can do this and, all the little stuff that I have to do. But I've been like, dang, I really want to make a beat. I really need to make some beats. I really want to make, I have this idea for this song and I'm singing it in my voice notes. And I'm like, oh man, you're working on another record.
Now, what's interesting is that originally you went to school to become a journalist. You were at UC Berkeley and you majored in journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere along the line, you veered off into music.
Right.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, music was always a really huge part of my life, ever since I was a little girl. My mom was always playing music in the house. I was always singing in choruses, and I picked up the clarinet, even though I wanted to play the saxophone when I was in elementary school. And I really fell in love with the clarinet. I mean, I used to take it home and practice. I had a little music stand, and I used to really practice. I played throughout middle school, and then I started rapping in middle school. So when I went to high school, I veered more toward the sports aspect of things, and I actually ended up going to an international studies high school that became a performing arts high school, but I wasn't part of the performing arts program. So I was in the international studies and, on track to become a journalist. But music was always there, so I started rapping. Me and my rap group, we would record records with DJ Kimmett from Atlanta, and he was working with Arrested Development, and so we were, starting to do our thing and opening up for bands like, we opened up for The Roots, and we opened up the Diggable Planets, and we opened up for, RZA, the hip-hop acts that would come in town. We would end up opening up for them. But I had to go, I had to go to school because my parents taught me to go to school because education was, the most important thing to get you out of where, your living situation. You had to be, education was just key. Right. So I got accepted into Berkeley, which is one of the best schools in the country. So there's no way I was not going to go. Mm-hmm. And I went out there and started, of course, hanging out with rappers and musicians and having parties and, emceeing. Yeah, I couldn't get away from it. So one of my friends was a bass player at the time, and the funny thing is this was the only year of his life that he'd ever played bass. I found this out later, and he used to carry around this upright bass, and we would like have parties where he would play upright, and this other guy would play drums, and we would freestyle over him. And one day I was talking to him, and I was like, "Man, I think I want to play an instrument again." And he's like, "Well, what do you think about getting?" I'm like, I want to get a guitar. I want to be a rock star, So he's like, "Man, you should get a bass." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Just because you play bass." Guitar was actually his main instrument, but he's like, "You should get a bass because you have the vibe of a bass player. You got a bass player vibe." And I was like, "Well, I don't know what that means, but okay." So I went home and got a bass and fell in love with the bass.
Mm.
And left
so
school, and
that obviously it skyrocketed. It started you on the path to where you are now, and you auditioned for Beyonce.
mm-hmm.
And how ecstatic were you when you were selected?
Oh man, it was really exciting. But before the Beyonce tour, I ended up touring with Victor Wooten, who's probably one of the best bass players in the world. So I started touring with Victor, and then ended up auditioning for Beyonce. And I mean, come on, it was, in the beginning, I really didn't. I was such a underground type of head that I wasn't really into the whole pop scene, just wasn't really into that at all. I was really into jazz and underground hip hop and funk and soul music. So I Destiny's Child, and I knew their stuff because it was on the radio, and of course they had worked with a lot of Atlanta producers, so I would know the songs and stuff, but I wasn't really into that. And it wasn't until I auditioned and started to move forward in the auditions that I became excited and was like, "Yo, this is pretty major." This could be really cool to do this. Wow, maybe I should. Yeah, this might be cool. So, I was head over heels when we were selected, and we did the BET Awards. 2 weeks after being selected to be in the Beyonce band, and from then, man, it was on. We were traveling all over the world, and and on TV and doing shows and playing with the biggest artists in the world and all these women, and we were having so much fun. It's indescribable.
Does it all seem a bit surreal to you? Just the way it unfolded and where you are now?
Yeah, sometimes I look back and I'm like, wow, did that really happen? And I have to sometimes stop and appreciate that it all happened. Mm-hmm. Because I think as human beings, we're always looking for what's next. Okay, that happened. Now, what happens now? What happens next for me in my life and my journey as a musician and as an artist? And how do I figure this? How do I navigate this part of my life now? But I've been so fortunate to just have these things unfold and happen that, there's almost like there's a script writer and somebody is just writing the story, and I got to be willing to just go on the ride, be open to it.
Right. I think this album, and I said it wrong initially, I see impossible, but it's I am possible. I'm possible is what it is, because
yep.
The album shows that it is possible. You did it, and it's really funky. It's just a funky album, every single track. But what genre would you put it? If you had to put your music in a particular genre, if you had to describe the type of music you present, what would that be?
I've been having this problem for years, this whole genre thing. How am I supposed to? I always sit in front of the computer and look at these little boxes, and I'm like submitting my music to different blogs and stuff, and they're like, okay, what's the genre? And I'm looking, and I'm like, well, it's not quite that. No, it doesn't really fit in that category either. So I don't see a category. I don't see the genre for me. I just don't. And that's part of the problem, part of my issue. A really good friend of mine, Malcolm Jamal Warner, I sent him the album before we finished mixing it because I really wanted to know what he thought about it. He's a friend and he plays bass, and we were hanging out in LA, and I'm like, dude, I want you to hear the record. I was like, I don't know what to call it. I really have no idea. It's hip hop. I'm rapping. It's hip hop, but it's also funk and it's also soulful. So I don't know. So he's like, you know what? It's alternative pop music. And I'm like, well, what is that? They don't have that genre anywhere.
Interesting.
He said hip hop is pop music now.
Huh.
And this album lends itself to an alternative version of hip hop. So I'm like, okay, well, they don't have an alternative pop category anywhere. So I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, you know what?
I can't say at all.
I tell you what, if they had a box marked other, which I know they don't, they really should. We should petition to have them put a box mark other. I would check the box mark other, and I would call it neo-funk.
Oh, neo-funk. Okay.
That's what I would call it, because that's what it feels like.
Do you know funk is not officially a category?
It's not?
No, and that bothers me every time I go and look in these places where I'm supposed to pick a box. There's no funk box. So what happened where funk did not become an official category for music?
I did not know.
And where does funk music supposed to lie? It's so weird to me.
I think they group it all under R&B, which really, if you break apart R&B, you'll find that there's so many different categories in there. It's not just R&B. It's not just that, and it's not just alternative. I think alternative came about when they couldn't figure out where to put it. So, we just call it alternative. Just label it all up, Not
that is the other box. The alternative box is the other box.
Not cool at all, And sometimes I download music. Like a perfect example is your album. It downloads as alternative. Then I've got to go through the tracks and relabel it R&B or whatever I need it to be. So that's the catch-all. Now, tell me about We Are, the track We Are. I know that's the track we're pushing now. That's the popular track for you right now. What's the story behind that?
The We Are song, we were playing around in the studio with some chords, and me and my guitar player, and we stumbled upon this progression, and it just felt so good. And the first thing I started singing was We Are, We Are, We Are, We Are. And I'm like, whoa, okay. So I sing out what we're waiting for, over the course of the next couple of days and come up with this hook. So we just have this chord progression and a hook. And eventually I make my way to Keith Harris of the Black Eyed Peas because I was working with this other producer, and we just weren't getting what I wanted out of the song because I knew that there was something really special there. Mm-hmm. And it just needed, and I knew that I wasn't the one who was supposed to take it where it needed to go, although I knew where it needed to go. So Keith Harris, we got in the studio, I let him hear the progression, and he was like, I want to do that song. Great. Get in the studio, we come up with this beautiful song, and later on, I'd go back and say, who said we're the ones we've been waiting for? We've heard this phrase throughout our lives, right? President Obama was saying it quite a bit during his campaign. And I Googled who originally said we're the ones we've been waiting for. And I find out that it was my former professor at UC Berkeley, June Jordan.
Oh, wow.
Who was the originator of that phrase. Mm-hmm. And I studied poetry for the people with June when I was at Berkeley. So I was getting, my little writing, my creative self on in school. And June had taken us to New York to do poetry readings, and we used to have poetry readings at the school, and she was like a mother to me in a sense because I was all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, in California. I had no family in California at all. And when she took us to New York, I got really sick with the flu or something. It was my first time really experiencing that type of cold. And she came to the house and took me to the doctor and took care of me. Like, I really, really, really loved June. So the song really became a tribute to her for me.
Wow. Because
she was the first one to say it. Alice Walker is another really good big influence on me, and she wrote a book called We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For, and she attributed the saying to June Jordan. June Jordan read this poem in front of the UN in 1978 to protest apartheid, and the last line in the poem is, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Well, yeah, and the
Yeah,
reason the
so,
reason why I ask is because it kind of speaks to the world we're in right now, or it's almost like as if there's a
oh, yeah.
message. There
Just,
is a message there that's speaking to where we are today and what's happening in the world today.
yes, when I started writing the verses, and I mean, we are at war. We are always at war, it seems,
But we're
in this
really at
country.
war
We are
this
at war
this
with ourselves.
yeah.
We're at war with each other. We're at war in our neighborhoods. And something that happened, the Trayvon Martin thing really touched me in so many ways, just like it touched many of us. Because I have a nephew he was probably about 8 at the time. And I started thinking about him as he gets older, and his parents don't live in a poor neighborhood or anything. And I think about sometimes in my life, and I've been in really nice neighborhoods as a black woman, and what would it be like for my nephew to go into the store with a hood on because it's cold or rainy or something, and somebody following him and him becoming afraid
Mm.
and beginning to fight for his life. Like I was really able to go there, and it just really scared the crap out of me. And Trayvon and I had the same birthday, so it was just so when I wrote the line, oh, now it's like I'm all emotional. Are we also afraid of what we don't understand that we're willing to shoot without cause?
Right.
What just happened in Orlando?
Yes.
Are we also afraid of what we don't understand that we're willing to shoot without cause? What happened in Florida with the 4 young men in the car? I can't remember the brother's name, and they were playing their music too loud, and dude just decided that it was
It
too
was
much,
too
so
loud.
and he was
Yeah.
threatened by that, so he wanted to shoot them. We don't understand. I don't understand. Maybe I don't understand why you want to play your music that loud, but are we willing to shoot somebody because of that? What if you were that one, the one that could change the course? Would you
Right.
step into your greatness? You know?
I
So,
heard that. I actually listened to the lyrics and I'm like, this is so powerful. It's a song I had to play today because it's my first time on air since the whole thing happened over the weekend. And I'm like, it's such a powerful song. And I understand why it's as popular as it is. Matter of fact, I'm going to play it again and
oh,
keep
thank
playing it
you.
because
Thank you.
there's a message there and it's a good question. Are we that afraid? I mean, really, it's a serious question, not one that we can answer, but
No.
I do believe something's happening. I don't know what it is, but, and I could sit here and go on and on. But let's go to what you doing, where you at, who you with. Now, I love that track.
Thank you. What's funny is the story about that track is that, okay, so my mom, I told you that my mom loves music. She loves music. I mean, absolutely adores it. There's music playing in her house when she's not even home. So when she walks in the door, she can hear some music playing.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Oh, for real. She's very serious about her music. So
That's
my
good.
mom will sometimes call me and tell me the songs that I should write, because, she wants to see me make it. So she's like, listen, you need to write a song called What You Doing, Where You At, Who You With. She was like, because what's the first thing you do when you call your boo on the phone? What's the first thing you ask them? What you
What
doing,
you doing?
where you at,
Uh-huh.
and who you with,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
But she thought it should be like a hip hop track, like what you doing, where you at, who you with, huh? What you doing? I was like, Mom, not writing that song. And I really thought about it too. I think I even sat down in front of the computer and like started making a beat, and I was like, that is not, that's just not it, right? So this bass line, I think I was practicing, and this bass line just appeared out of nowhere, and I started playing, and I was like, oh man, that's funky right there. And so then I turned on my little phone so I could record it, so I remember it. So I remembered the bass line. I recorded it, and I walk around, with my phone and listen to it. You're like, man, what song? What is that song saying to me? And then all of a sudden, I was like, what you doing? Oh, yeah. What you doing? Big ass to the big up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that song came out. It was totally my mom.
Wow. Is your mom on the CD? Have you given her credit for this inspiration?
My mom is on the very first track, Miracle. That's my mom leaving me a voice note on the song Miracle. She called me, and I left town, and and for some reason I saved this voice note of hers. And she says at the end of the voice note, always expect a miracle. because, she's wishing me well, and she's telling me, I really hope your business takes off, and I know you're busy, and I meant to call you, or I didn't get a chance to talk to you before you left. And at the end, she says, always expect a miracle. So I saved this voice note, and I downloaded it into my iTunes. And I had always, after I heard it, I was like, Mom, that was powerful. I really I was going to chop it up and make a beat out of the always expect a miracle. And I had been in Belgium with a friend of mine, and I had this chord progression, and I was like, forced him to get in the studio and lay down these keys over this bass line. And I ended up coming back home, getting on the computer like maybe a year later, changing the bass line and importing her message. And that became the first song on the record. Wow. And my dad had passed away, so the Miracle song was really about the creation of Divinity. Like my parents, I was born, I was conceived on the prom night for a celebration. Mm-hmm. Mom and Dad was 18 and they ain't have Nathan. My parents had me, they ain't have nothing, mm-hmm. Nothing. They were young and they were, trying to get it together. And then I came. And all they could do was just pour love into me and education and
music.
Love and music. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm glad they got together. I'm glad they had that moment.
Me too.
And I'm glad there was you.
Yes. And my brother and sister, too.
Divinity Roxx. Where can folks find the album?
The album is on iTunes. It's on Amazon. It's on Google Play. You can stream it on Spotify. It's on Pandora. It's on my website. If you want a physical copy of the album, we will ship it out to you from my website. You can order it on the website. That way you get to see the artwork, because the artwork for the album was really beautiful, and it came together in a really crazy way. I'll tell you about it really quickly. There's a photographer in Germany named Mark Miningman who does this series of hands, of musicians' hands. And we met online, and he wanted to come and shoot my hands. He's been, shooting musicians' hands all over the world. Anybody who comes to Germany, he'll shoot their hands. And he did a photo exhibit in Germany not too long ago. But I asked him if he would shoot the cover of the album. And I knew I wanted this album to be really, really, just really personal. So I didn't want to do anything but just take a picture of my face. And he's like, sure. So I was in Germany touring. I took a day, and he took the photo. And, the photo lived for a year before we did anything with it. And I ended up going to a good friend of mine, Sabrina Nelson, who's a visual artist and painter in Detroit, and had her paint the photo. The incredible graphic designer, Mario Butterfield, he was like, okay, so what do you want to do with it? And I was like, well, I had some abstract ideas that I wanted to do. And I was like, well, just take it and kind of take my ideas and do whatever. And he took the photo and the painting and merged the two of them. Wow. And it became the album cover.
It's a beautiful album cover.
It's a really cool work of art.
And folks, if you want to see it, go to Amazon.com, iTunes. Your website, Divinity, is DivinityRoxx.com.
Yep.
There you go.
ROXX.
ROXX. Although you rock, ROCK, the name is Divinity Roxx. ROXX. Thank you so much, Divinity, for joining me here in the lounge this afternoon.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your music and the message that is in the music.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for, doing what you do to get these artists out here and exposed to the world and sharing this message, sharing this love, sharing this music, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, someone's got to do it, and I proudly carry that torch.
Yes, ma'am.
Like I like to say, when it's good music, it's easy. I just let it do what it do. My favorite phrase, just let it do what it do. Will you come back soon?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. And
I'm
going to let folks get a taste of Miracles. Since you talk so much about that, I'm going to have them give them a little listen.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. And you have a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye. And that was Divinity Roxx. The album we're talking about is I'm Possible. And let's dive right into Miracle from the album I'm Possible.
Hey, Divinity, it's Mama. I was thought about you all night and just got busy and wanted to call, but started to text, started to hit you on Facebook, but I just didn't. I wasn't trying to bug you, but yeah, I wanted to connect with you before you left, but you know, you be busy, and it's all good because you do your part as a daughter, and I appreciate that. But I love you, and you're definitely in my prayers, and I just pray that this year, definitely your year, I really believe it, to prosper in your business and your dream. So hold on, get ready for the ride, and I'll see you soon. And always expect a miracle. Always expect a miracle.